need it that much.
I guess if you jam Mali there, it didn't have much of a follow-up. You've got no swipe, you've got no Moonfire. I know there's a Mali on the board and it's a 4-12 and you're not dealing with it, but it didn't have much to do.
Yeah, I guess your Starfall clears things now anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't really need it for next turn.
So that's probably the thinking is...
Well, but then you have a Mali on board.
No, sure, then you have a Mali on board, sure. But you know, you can do that next turn maybe when he knows he's got a swipe
I think both lines win the game.
Yeah.
This is lethal. This should be game. There's nothing the Token Druid can do now. I mean, she can draw... No, she can't draw Plague, but...
Malfurion's not enough, and looks like Saiyan has reached the second final in HCT tour stops in a row, but his fourth final in a row in tournaments. This is ridiculous. And against Kallax, who's had a great season himself.
It's just amazing how he does it. You know, he told me, I got a 200 finish, but I don't care. I'm going to take 15 points from here.
Yeah, because a 200 finish is bad, by the way. For people watching, a 200 finish is bad, not good.
Yeah, it's bad. And he already got 12. So he's 1 win away.
And next week, are you going to Singapore?
No, I didn't get in time.
So it's going to be Saiyan and Hunter Ace in Singapore.
Yes, and Ostkaka. Don't forget about Ostkaka. I bet my money on Ostkaka. He's doing the comeback.
Amazing scenes, though. And Hunter Ace not even here, like...
No, he's in China right
now.
You
were on the saying that Saiyan's got Hunter Ace's power. He's going to come to Norway and reach the final and Hunter Ace's home turf.
Saiyan gets it. He's in the finals again.
And... I mean, you said it better than I could. It's like, well, I can't even scream it anymore. Just he's in the finals again. Just saying, 4 finals in a row.
He just does what he does.
We're both just sitting here like, what on earth is happening?
I don't know how he does it.
This has never happened in Hearthstone before. I think Pavel had some runs very close to this, but in slightly smaller tournaments. But these are, I mean, there's 180 players at this event. There were same sort of number at DreamHack. The qualifier he got through for WSG was massive. There were over 200.
I mean,
and playoffs is only 70 or 80 players.
In playoffs.
But it's the best players in the whole of NA.
You know, in last 2 months, I think he only lost to Hoi and Orange.
And yeah, Chosen.
What?
Chosen reset the bracket in the final WSG.
That doesn't count, Lorinda.
It does if you're him. I certainly would want it known if I was him.
Sure.
But yeah, they're the only 2 players. And Hoi beat him yesterday and isn't here to challenge him in this top 8.
Yeah.
It's going to be down to Zuhex in the final, who... We know he's a strong grinder.
He's in the semi. Isn't there another semi-final? No.
No, that was the other semi-final.
Oh, this was. Oh, so final is Zuhex versus. Okay, Sam.
Yeah. And there you see confirmation of that.
There we go.
And I mean, Zuhex has done really well in this tournament. I've enjoyed watching him, but he's known as a grinder, not a tournament player.
Does he have what it gets though?
he's kept cool so far. He's had a lot of nervous energy off stage, sort of talking to admins and people, asking a lot of questions because he's not been in this position before. It's like, who do I talk to do this? What? Yeah, you guys just sit down and do your thing.
I would be scared out of my mind if I was playing as Saiyan in the finals after all that.
You were scared out of your mind playing as Saiyan in the finals last week.
I wasn't really.
No, you weren't. I know. You had a fantastic one. And you put on a great show for us there.
Yeah.
But Zuhex can take it one of 2 ways. He can be like, I am terrified, I'm playing Saiyan in a final. Or he can go, I've got nothing to lose. Because I'm expected to lose this. Yes. Let's just sit down and enjoy it.
Sure, I think he's a good player. He's a grinder, as we said. He's a ladder player, but I mean, haven't we all been? I've been. Saiyan has been. Mazi has been. Hunter is. So you know, everyone starts from there. So
yeah, you got to start somewhere. No real better way to start than playing against Saiyan with nothing to lose in your first final. That would be great either way for Zuhex. Obviously, if he can win it, it'd be massive. If he loses it, we just talk about Saiyan all the way through Singapore next week, and Hunter Ace starts getting jealous. We're going to give them a break so they can look through the deck list, work out their bans. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes with the grand final here in Oslo. Welcome back for the final time to HCT Oslo. Just Saying is in his 4th consecutive finals, and he has won the other 3, and it's all getting a bit ridiculous. He's gone through pro player after pro player after pro player, but now he's up against ladder grinder turns tournament player ZooHex, and with me to sort this mess out is Darek. And Darek, is Saying going to do another win?
I don't even know. I think we should probably give a disclaimer right now that it may sound like we are focusing the cast quite heavily on Just Saying and his dominance here. We will try not to, but to be perfectly frank, this is Hearthstone history in the making. This is an incredibly exciting time. 4 tournament victories in a row, if you count top 4ing playoffs as a victory, which it basically is, because you can't do any better than that.
And I mean, people with the attitude I'm having, which is almost like this resigned, what do I say next? When you speak to someone who just played Saying, they have that same look on their face of, well, I did all right, then I played Saying. And there's not even anything, there's no disclaimer goes with it. It's just, you played Saying, so you lost. And again, I keep stressing, Hunter Ace isn't here. And while he's not been around here, you know, doing pretty important tournaments elsewhere, what's happening is Saying just going, well, let's stop talking about Hunter Ace for a few weeks. Who's that guy? But next week in Singapore, of course, he will be back, and Saying's there too. And Saying may be there as the 2-time back-to-back defending tour stop champion as well, because he won the last one in Montreal.
The best we've seen in terms of tour stop victories is obviously Hunter Ace so far, with 2 tour stop victories, but not consecutive, not 2 tour stops in a row, which obviously Just Saying could be on the verge of here with his DreamHack victory now leading on to a potential Oslo victory. But this is not to say that, this is not to downplay what ZooHex has done here. Getting through to the finals is remarkably impressive. And if he can be the player to upset this and take down Just Saying, that would just be truly something to, well, he'll be known to everyone there. The defeater, someone who actually slayed the Goliath that is Just Saying.
Yeah, the only 2 matches Saying has lost out of his last 36 or something, we're losing track, having matches that actually he could redeem. So he lost the last round of the Swiss, but he was already through. And he lost the finals at WSG, but it was a bracket reset final, which he went on to win. Now, ZooHex here, talking to you a moment ago, you feel that this is a very important first game.
Oh, yes, very much so. The Togwaggle Druid, which ZooHex has not only brought here, but also is incredibly proficient with. This is definitely his pet deck that he loves more than any other in his lineup, I believe. Plays it all the time on ladder. If he can take this win, he could very possibly be in the line for just a 3-0 sweep, I think it's fair to say. Togwaggle versus Malagos Druid gets significantly more complicated and very possibly will be going Just Saying's way if he plays it perfectly. But ZooHex knows this Togwaggle Druid deck so well that if he can get this first win, he should be in with a good spot. But I think his face there says it all.
Yeah, he's not comfortable with that. But the other way is also true. This Togwaggle Druid is kind of not all he has, but he has Quest Rogue against Saying's lineup is not where you want to be. And then the even lock, sure, it's okay against the Zoo, but Saying's getting the Zoo out of the way. Maybe even predicting that ZooHex would start with his comfort pick. And, you know, if that even lock cues into the Rogue, for instance, then he's in trouble. Was the Rogue banned out?
No, it was the aggro mage.
The mage got banned out.
Yeah, because that is just such a good matchup against Quest Rogue and Evenlock that I do like the banning away of that. And like you said, Zoo is, in my opinion at least, a much better aggro deck against Togwaggle Druid than Odd Rogue is, because you just have so much more minions you can throw on the board. You don't really have weak turns as you sometimes do with the Odd Rogue. Even this is fine. Like, you get a bunch of stuff on the board with the Happy Ghoul and the Voodoo Doctor, and the other Happy Ghoul that came off the top.
You tap into. And what I think people, you can probably see that, but the round of applause coming from the crowd there. And again, this is ZooHex's main deck in this matchup. If he loses this, he's going to be in trouble. But then we said a certain thing about that in DreamHack Montreal when Saying went 2-0 down to Defino, and he did come back. So last hero standing does have some strange results. You tend to think in terms of counters, but things, you know, you've still got to play the Hearthstone.
Yeah, and ZooHex's hand is not an awful hand. This is a pretty good hand with, you know, Nourish, Oaken Summon, Spreading Plague, and a Tyrant as well. These are all very good cards in this matchup. But with Saying able to now go buffed up Chain Gang as well, everything he puts down is so beefy and just represents so much damage. I'm not sure that ZooHex can even stand up to it.
We saw ZooHex in his quarterfinal make some really interesting and clever plays with this deck. Again, if he's not careful, he's going to get lost in the shuffle a bit of the Saying destroying everybody. But he has played incredibly well in this tournament. Translated a lot from ladder, and you said it best. He's a deserving finalist. But his nerves are going to be tested. It can go one of two ways. I was saying this to Fino. You've got two choices. You can panic because you're in the final. Now you've got to beat Saiyan. Yeah. Or you can say, I'm in the final, I'm playing Saiyan. I'm not going to win anyway. I might as well just enjoy myself, play my best Hearthstone, and see if I actually end up winning. Right. Just, if you do that second one, actually, that's the way you can win this match.
Yeah, you need to be proud of yourself for what you've accomplished. Anything past a tour stop final is kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
As we do see for Just Saying, the two Yetis with Taunt for 4 mana, the classic Zoo play that is just so devastatingly powerful. However, the Spreading Plague now for Zoohex is the only card that can keep him in this game, and it is exactly what he has, and what a turn this is going to be for him.
Yeah, the Tyrant backup is so strong.
Really
it just
nice.
Really cleans up any things that are left over, and saying he's going to have his work cut out despite this crazy start. But of course, Zoohex is so low right now, it isn't over. Saiyan could find a way to just sneak through a Soulfire and a minion for the next turn or two. But other than that, Zoohex will just get out of range with armor.
And I don't believe that Just Saying is running Mossy Horror in his zoo. I think that was just Impy in terms of our top 8 players who was running the...
As in, I think it was just Impy. Yeah.
Yes. Which obviously is somewhat disappointing for him here. But overall should be pretty good for him, because if he does take this victory, he's going to have to be up against the likes of what's left, Even Warlock or Quest Rogue. The Even Lock should be pretty good for Zoohex, I think, up against the Zoo here. And it's not over yet. He hasn't lost this game of Hearthstone, as miserable as it is currently looking.
Yeah, this is Saiyan's ongoing strategy against Spreading Plague is, okay, first of all, make them have it. Secondly, make them have the next one.
Yeah.
Like, by playing the Chain Gang last turn, it was basically, okay, I can chew, they're so big, they can chew through minions anyway. Derek's puffing and panting in the back here.
Oh, it's just looking so miserable. He has to naturalize a 1-drop here just to stay alive. Just so beautifully set up by Saiyan here. I think, like you said, the fact that he made his opponent have Spreading Plague to even be in the game, and I think realized by going so wide, even if they have it, I just don't care. It's too much damage, it's too much stats I have on the board, and this is why Keleseth is so important in this matchup. It means their plagues don't kill your minions, their removal don't kill your minions, everything just survives forever.
And you know what's really ridiculous here? Is the Zoo has like 6 cards more in hand than the Druid, despite it being the deck that's supposed to spew its hand on the table.
And this is where some very, very quick maths needs to be done here for Just Saying. Is this lethal? I think 20 health is probably a little bit too much to be pushing forward, but man, is that a lot of burst he has in hand.
Yeah, probably not quite, but I mean, just developing another Chain Gang which just seems pretty ridiculous already.
If there's any minions he definitely wants to play next turn, he needs to be worrying about filling up the board space, because we've already seen Impy make that mistake, I think.
Yeah, but the only one is Leroy, and you only need to play the Leroy if one of these is killed anyway. So
you always have lethal anyway next turn. It has to be a second Plague here, and he doesn't have Mossy to counteract the Plague, I don't believe.
I do get the impression that Zoohex is taking this in the second manner. It's like, this is funny. Saiyan's destroying me in a final.
So now at 20 health, he can deal with one of these minions, the 4 health ones, which brings him up to 25. There would then be 11, 14, 17, 20 damage on board with the 5.
10 in hand.
We can see that would be lethal, I think, here, quite handily. As like a very rough first count of lethal. I think that the amount of damage necessary to take this one down with Leroy and Soulfire is there for Just Saying, but he will be counting up. He takes down the 5 with Leroy. He can then go...
I'm trying to work out, he might need to get it
10,
exact.
14, 20... Yeah, with the buff as well.
With the buff on the Leroy, I think it might be one off, but yeah.
He's just counting up, making double, triple sure here that he hasn't messed up his maths, but a very, very important victory here at the start here for Just Saying. Taking out that Togwaggle Druid is so crucial to his chances of winning.
Yeah, and now at some point, it's very likely that Zoohex is going to have to find a win with a Quest Rogue or go crazy with Even Lock against Odd Rogue or something. He's got to win a super unfavourable somewhere along the way against the guy who is practically unbeatable.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is with Just Saying and exact lethals as well. How many times in this tournament has he had just the perfect amount of burst to get there? With his Malagos Druid, it's often been UI to face with a couple of Moonfires as well for exact lethal. He just seems to know. I don't know if it's fortuitous, if he's setting it up in advance. It's a bit of both, probably, isn't it? Yeah.
He is, I think, Another good player here, before I say everything, there's a Neyman used to be like this, but he's very, very good at knowing exact damage amounts many turns in advance. I don't think that was one of those, because there's too much going on. But you do see some turns where he clearly plans to kill this minion in 2 turns' time, and he's going to do it with this mana. And that allows you to get 1 extra damage to face. And if you're on a massive win streak and you're getting exact lethals, and you keep finding 1 extra damage here and there, that's the difference between 80% win rate, or 1,000,000%, or 80% or like 72%, because those 1 points of damage, if he hadn't got exacties there, maybe he loses. Not in that game, but in some of them.
You definitely got to be careful with giving your opponent comeback opportunities. But that does mean, as I take my pen of judgment here to write off one of ZooHex's decks, Togwaggle Druid is out of the way, which means he thinks his best chance to be fighting back against the Zoo is the Even Warlock. Well, and when he's presented with Even Lock or Quest Rogue, I'd probably agree with him there.
Yeah, we started off the cast by saying the Togwaggle's got to sweep, most likely. It hasn't. I think the Even Lock has got to win 2 matches.
Well, what does it have to be? If he loses with the Even Lock here, he has to win with Quest Rogue against Zoo, Odd Rogue, and Malagos Druid.
So this needs to win probably a good 2 games. And off to a good start. I mean, we'll have a very strong chance against Zoo. Shane put a lot of thought into this already. He's got his openers, but he's already thinking, how do I proceed with this goal? And that's the hand you're looking for ZooHex.
Is it though? In the mirror, this would
maybe it's not so good. Maybe you can't defend in time.
Like, this would be insane in the mirror. But when you're up against Zoo, you want Vulgar Homunculus. Okay, that's pretty nice to find. You want Hellfire, you want Defile. You also want, like, Twilight Drake's good.
Fine.
Yeah. Mountain Giant is a little bit too heavy, I think, because you just need to be setting up minions that value trade onto the opponent's board. Yeah,
you may never even get to play the Mountain Giant because you've just got to dump. You can't really dump your hand, it's too expensive. You've got to play what you can each turn.
And Saiyan here has got himself in a bit of a rough position that I have to imagine, with his mulligan of keeping Voodoo Doctor and Happy Cool, he was expecting, where not finding Flame Imp or Kobold Librarian, he's pretty much forced into Coin Tap.
Coin Tap is a play you just never see in Hearthstone anymore.
I don't know. I think
it's right. I'm sure it's right, because the way it damages yourself, you get Happy Cool next turn. But it's nuts, and it gives you a great chance of getting another 1-drop.
I think I think this is not only a play that Just Saying is forced into through desperation. I think through his mulligan of keeping Voodoo Doctor and Happy Cool, he was expecting this.
Yeah. He also has another thing on his side here in a weird way, in that his opponent full mulliganed, so he can play the maths regarding AoE.
Okay.
There's no guessing. There's no anything. He's like, I know the number. I know what percentage chance my opponent has of having the AoE, and I can play accordingly. Yeah, and that tap does pick him up more 1-drops.
Yeah, this is the only real play on this turn for Saiyan, without obviously Prince Keleseth to get the ball rolling. He just needs to develop onto the board as much as possible and hope that the minion pressure early on from ZooHex isn't there. We can clearly see, though, the minion pressure is there in spades. He's got pretty much every 2-drop in his deck now.
Yeah, and everyone focuses on the AoE, which is obviously a big deal. But actually, if you can control the board with your minions, it's even better.
Yeah.
You start restricting your opponent's rights to tap, and your AoE will just come naturally.
That is just the absolute dream. And ZooHex can follow up, as we mentioned, with that Twilight Drakers. Even as it will be just a 4-6, a 4-7, that's fine. That's just a great way to keep up the pressure on board and take value trade after value trade. Yeah.
Well, this one is looking rough for Saiyan. And we said it from the start, but the armor's making a big difference too.
It really is. He's going to have to make a big decision here as to how he wants to take this game forward. Does he want to go really aggressive? He's got Leroy in hand, push everything through to face and hope that the removal and healing isn't there. Or does he want to take it a little bit slower, try and fight for board and lock down his position? I think that because of the way he played it with like Coin Tap, his hand doesn't really get there, how much healing even Warlock has. He's going to have to be playing for board pretty heavily here, which we see with the trade in there to play around Defile.
Yeah, and if you've got Hellfire, well done. You had Hellfire.
Yeah. Hellfire is the worst case scenario for him. But
he never beats Hellfire here.
Well, no, he plays Dreadlord next turn. This is the perfect amount to play around both Defile and Hellfire. This is actually quite a gorgeous play from Saiyan. It just means the only punishes from Zoohex punish his own board as well. It will be a board clear in which Saiyan ends up ahead.
Saiyan doesn't have many more turns left now before Zoohex's... The fact he's just drawn all minions. Yeah, he starts playing 6-drop minions that are just better than Saiyan's cards, and because he's got more cards than Saiyan, the mana is going to start swinging it his way. If they get to 10 mana, for instance, just think of the things Zoohex will be able to do that Saiyan can't.
Mossy picks up as well. Could be that big swing surprise turn back in Zoohex's favor. But for now, he's had such an easy time in the early game playing out his 2-drops and fitting in taps on the odd cost turns as well. He's able to just throw down Giant here.
Yeah, and that's a massive deal. Especially with the hand he's got, because he can choose potentially to start going aggressive. Well, he could until Saiyan picked this lot up. This deck feels so much weaker when it doesn't Keleseth. It's such a big difference from the last game.
It's so miserable. Like, does he Soulfire here to clear it off? That feels absolutely dreadful.
And he loses the Leroy.
Yeah. Very interesting display here from Just Saiyan in an aspect that you don't often see in Hearthstone, which is damaging minions rather than killing them.
He does that a lot.
He does do that a lot, and it always works out. Like we saw, damaging the Twilight Drake. I think a lot of players would have shipped everything face there to try and close out the game as quick as possible. But he knew, Hellfire, I have Dreadlord. Defile, it dies anyway.
Dread Infernal is actually now a problem for Zoohex. If he plays it, he ends up ending up losing his Giant to a Saronite token. And
And now for Saiyan, even with the Mossy Horror coming down here, we'll probably end up seeing a trade from the Mountain Giant in here. Saiyan will have created 4 damage from nowhere. Yeah,
and these are the bits of damage that, you know, when someone goes on a crazy run like this, it's not luck. You need a little bit of fortune along the way. Yes, he's had some... You go through his last 30 games, he's top-decked a few times, because guess what? 30 games is a lot of Hearthstone games.
Yeah.
But he constantly gets those extra bits of damage through. That is what's happening.
You talk about getting a little bit fortunate, though. This was not that.
This was not that.
This was not that. He got every bad card in like 3 draws there with the double Soul Infusion and Soulfire. The best he can do here is develop a 3/3 and make that Fungalmancer, well, a 5-mana 6/6, which is mighty impressive.
Yeah.
But
even looks on 19. It's got the best cards. It's got the mana to do what it likes.
Yeah.
And this one is very... Well, it's over. He's lost Leroy already.
It's looking very, very rough here for Just Saiyan.
I think he's lost both Chain Gangs now too.
He has.
One of your sort of luck box fight back mechanisms. Top deck, but there's nothing left for him, I don't think.
Yeah, like, if he goes Voodoo Doctor Fungalmancer here with a Soulfire, what does that even accomplish? It means he can, well, he can't even tap to redraw his hand. Yeah.
I hear the click. I think we both heard the click. And he gives it up 1 game apiece, and that should... I mean, Zoohex seems settled anyway to me, but that should, if there were any lingering nerves, just ease himself into the match, get himself to 1-all.
And this is quite funnily, actually, something that we may have all forgotten about Just Saiyan is that he is a very quick conceder. He hasn't done that much recently because he hasn't lost any games of Hearthstone. But yeah, when he feels the game is over, he won't fight out to the bitter end because we knew that was over. There was no route back into that game. He knew it as well, which means with his Zoo taken out of the way, he does have a pretty good counter, I would say, to the Even Warlock in the form of Odd Rogue, a matchup I like very much against the Even Warlock. And if he takes that matchup, there's only Quest Rogue to fight back against that for Zoohex.
Aggro lineup.
Yeah. This is, I still think, looking pretty good here for Saiyan.
What I don't... Yeah, I mean, the thing is with this lineup, it doesn't look that good when you stare at it on paper at first glance. It's like, oh, you're just going to get countered so easily. But we've seen person after person with lineups that look like they can counter it. And it just turns out, yes, if the Tog sweeps, you win 3-0, but the Tog doesn't sweep. It's only 60-40s or whatever. And Saiyan's just comfortable with this lineup. He hasn't changed it a great deal over the last few tournaments.
And this all just harkens back to me to something that really stuck with me from Fino's stream about his process towards deck building at the moment, which is just that anti-aggro decks aren't good enough against aggro decks.
Which is,
Odd Warrior is like the only anti-aggro deck that's good enough, which Saiyan has been banning every time, straight away. Doesn't even think about it because his lineup is so bad against it. Every single deck in his lineup is miserable against Odd Warrior, so he obviously had that plan from the start, get that out of the way, and he's usually left with the ability to get some pretty good matchups.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to face one dodgy one, but again, it has to sweep you.
Yeah.
And all your decks, like you say, just what Fino said, they're not bad enough. They're not bad enough to get swept very often, and you just destroy the other two. So, well, Saiyan doesn't have a very good choice in 3 drops, which is obviously key in the early game here, but he'll buy time.
He's got some of the good cards, though, Okay, Baku aside, which is obviously the miserablest card to draw. Coin Vilespine is something that he has, which is very powerful, and Saiyan knows that that is very powerful.
Yeah, we've seen him use it incredibly aggressively in situations, like keeping coin for it all the time.
Every time. It's what we've seen so many times from Just Saiyan, not only in Oslo, but in previous tournaments as well, is Twilight Drake comes down on 4, Coin Vilespine every time. As we see.
Okay, just once again, making your
one
opponent
damage from nowhere. Yeah. As if by magic.
I mean, that one's slightly
just
more straightforward, but even so, it's every time. He just finds the extra points, and here is a really reasonable 3-drop.
Yes, that is very nice indeed. Zuhex's only real response to that is
Silence
Spellbreaker?
Yeah.
Hellfire? Oof.
You don't have many silence targets, in fairness, so this isn't a total waste, but your 4-drop dies to their 3-drop, which is never fun.
Saiyan now with the ability to go...
There's a lot of choices here. You can put damage on with SI7. You probably want to play the second Fledgling because you've just seen the problems this one caused, but he's going to set it up. He's going to hide it behind this for next turn.
Yeah, the Flame Elemental I find... I think the point of going for the... the point of going for the Tar Creeper here is to play around Hellfire as much as possible, because if he played the second Vicious Fledgling and pushed face, the entire board dies to Hellfire. This play, everything still dies to Hellfire, but he's kept back a more valuable minion. Like, after the Hellfire comes down, Fledgling just onto the board is another major threat here.
Yeah, and backed up with the Vilespine that is in no hurry to play, Fledgling is a major threat behind the taunt, so you've got to be able to Hellfire, you've got to be able to blow it up. Yeah. Because otherwise he's going to come through your taunts, he's going to Fledgling you, we all know what happened. We've all been Fledglinged at some point.
We have all been flapped to death.
And Zuhex, again, I highlight it often, but as soon as you finish tapping, these odd number turns become really bad value a lot of the time.
Yeah, like silence again on this turn with a tap is really not bad. The only real options, I think, are silence or Spellbreaker or Hellfire.
Yeah, you say silence isn't bad, but that's what Saiyan wants him to do. Yeah. Then this Fledgling has a chance of chilling. Okay, there's a Hellfire backup, so it's not as simple as that, but... And Hellfire, we've seen odd rogue players use the Hellfire against a player. Like, okay, you're going to take 3 and let me put something on board.
And if we'd seen, the other real play I was considering on that turn from Saiyan, the previous turn, sorry, was like with a deck hand as well to trade into the Spellbreaker is really what I was looking at, because that makes Hellfire a lot worse. He would have been punished by Spellbreaker here, but I don't know. I feel like this would have worked out a little bit better in the immediate for Just Saiyan with the South Sea deckhand. I'm trying to imagine what he was in. Oh, I guess it was probably Defile he was afraid of there, that he didn't play the deck. I don't know, but he'd trade it in. It's a very strange couple of turns here. And again, I defer to Just Saiyan in these. I assume that he has played this deck so much that every line he goes for, this is a solved matchup for him. He just knows how to do it.
Yeah, I feel like that turn was complicated. But again here, so the Hellfire comes down, let's say. That's one option. It's a strong-looking option. Yeah. You actually have now the Ooze. That's a lot better than it looked a minute ago. But then Saiyan just gets to repopulate the board and redo it all again. And he's made him take 3 own goal damage. It's like, this damage really hurts you as the Warlock. And still waiting somewhere will be Myvers, I believe.
Yes. So plenty of options still here for Just Saiyan, where we could have seen, if he wanted to set up a defensive board like Giggling Inventor, but he doesn't have anything that he wants to protect, so I don't like that. We could have seen Deckhand going in there instead, but this just feels like the baseline play which is pretty good here for Just Saying. It's more threats on the board which demand an answer.
Big deal for ZooHex, though, over the last few turns. He's been able to go all hands on deck, not scared to waste spell breakers to not die, and now he's going to be able to get Geist down if he wants to, which removes those cold blood bursts, removes that deadly poison burst. He's not in a position where he's expecting to die next turn, though he's got to have Leroy on his mind.
Yeah.
And so if he can sneak this Geist down, I was talking about Myra's unstable element being a big deal in terms of making this even better for the rogue. It becomes kind of not so good when it hasn't got those burst 1-drops.
Well, if he was to play Skulking Geist here, he would never die next turn because Leroy double deckhand wouldn't be lethal. He is instead here not opting to play the Skulking Geist here, and there are a couple of cards in Saiyin's hand that I imagine ZooHex would rather he not have there.
I've seen ZooHex play Mossy Horror aggressively a few times this tournament. I think he really values that 7 health, so he gets 2 damage onto minions repeatedly.
Like, we're judging it from cast division here. If there was Fungalmancer here for Just Saying, ZooHex would be in a much worse position if he'd played the Skulking Geist. It is close.
There's times that I've seen ZooHex and Saiyan play this tour where I think they've got cast division anyway. They seem to be so good at hand reading these days.
I'm trying to think if there were opportunities to have played Fungalmancer before. On the Fledgling and Tark Reaper turn, it was cleared off. Yeah, I think this might be a good read from ZooHex that Fungalmancer has just been chilling in hand for a while.
Yeah.
Like, the Valspine has been kept. Maybe if he had a good hand, that could just be Fungalmancer, which he clearly wants to get rid of every turn. But speaking of clearing off minions every turn, the Defile Dread Infernal is a beautiful way to get that done. And now for Just Saying, I have to imagine the Valspine's going to come down just to clear up this board.
Looks like it to me.
Actually, he does have the deckhand in combination with the weapon. There's still other lines here. It gets so difficult for Just Saying. I think you probably want to save that damage through to face, though. But then if you get double hooked revered, the game's basically over.
Yeah, he's going to do this. This looks powerful. Weapon choice even here is probably difficult. Like, you're wasting damage, but you're not hitting down to 15, and you're keeping your options open in terms of trading.
This is a really nice way to, I think, set up lethal, because he's got 8, 11, 13, 17 next turn, as I count it. 8, 11, 13, 17, yeah. So
it has to be an odd number, so.
Not actually setting up lethal here, interestingly. So if he could have attacked face for 2, I feel like he definitely would have taken that option. If he went for deckhand to, like, coin deckhand to face on that turn, though, that would have meant that tap double hooked Reaver was a play for ZooHex, which is, I think, one of the major reasons why Just Saying didn't go for that, even though it would have set up lethal.
And again, we talk a lot about how Hearthstone involves actually not just following a flowchart, like hooked Reaver play arounds. The general rule of thumb is you don't bother playing around it. But then you get this situation where actually it doesn't matter much, so I will play around it. It makes a massive difference that he can't play it now.
Yeah, you don't play around what you can't beat.
Yeah.
But here, Just Saying realizes if I play around the Hook Reavers, I can definitely win.
And it's only cost me 3 or 4 damage to do so.
And he does still have a pretty huge amount of damage able to come through here with, what is that, Deckhand Cold Blood. He can push 6 to face on this turn, which is obviously not homing in on lethal quite yet. And therefore, I'm looking at Baku coin Cold Blood, or Baku attacking with everything.
You might want to try and get your Cold Blood on the Argent Squire.
Yeah. This, like, you're taking a lot of damage here, but Saiyan realizes with Hellfire's gone now, he doesn't need to worry about damage to face.
Yeah, and he's going to set up the Cold Blood on the Squire just for consistent stuff.
So now, 8 damage on board, 10 with the weapon. Cold Blood is 14, 2 over lethal with the deckhand as well. This is, the onus is now on ZooHex to find a way to fight back against this, which he has. He does have the ability to survive quite handily on this turn, be it through double Twilight Drake into Sun Fury Protector, which I imagine will come down, or even just Lich King. He has counterplay.
Yeah, Lich King, I like this play a lot. I was going to say about the Lich King, even though that looks like the obvious play to us, he's fearing the second Vile Spine, which would just be a nightmare for him. And if Saiyan had picked up that Vile Spine, it made a massive difference here.
Yeah, that would have just been lethal if Vile Spine had been picked up. And it does now mean that while Saiyan can make some very nice value trades here, he does not have the game, and Diamol is an absolutely miserable top deck.
Yeah.
His damage is falling by the wayside. Amethyst Spellstone here for ZooHex will be able to clear up pretty much everything on board here. He's almost just won.
Yeah, Saiyans having to trade with Odd Rogue to survive into get to his Myras. If he can pull that out, draw a load of cards, but again, he hasn't been Geist actually yet. Sorry, that never happened. So
yes,
he has still got those sort of buffs available,
but that's not good enough now. There's too much health available for Zoohex. And if Zoohex can win this game, the even lock against Odd Rogue, a pretty unfavorable matchup, this changes it so drastically. Zoohex would then be in a pretty good spot to be winning HCT Oslo.
Yeah, and I remember this look from Fino and Montreal that Zoohex has now. It's the moment where you realise you might win the tour stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is where now the pressure goes completely nuts.
Yep.
Whoever you are, and Zoohex hasn't got much big LAN experience despite being a strong player on ladder. And we talk about it a lot. I talk about talking about it a lot, but he has to keep it together now. This is where the mistakes can creep in.
They can, and we've also seen, I haven't been keeping exact track, but in terms of on-stream games, Just Saiyin's Malagos Druid has just been insane. It's been winning game after game after game. I love the build that he's got here. I don't know card for card. I believe it's very similar to the list that Noblord got a very good ladder finish with recently, the one that has Lich King and Dream Petal Florist thrown in there as well.
It feels like it's got like 33 cards in the deck. Yeah. I don't know where the slots come from in this deck, but it has everything in it.
And the Dream Petal Florist for him, at least in my opinion, has been the real MVP card of this deck. It's meant that against decks like Evenlock, where you have to get one massive swing turn to pull things back, he's been doing that consistently. Dream Petal Florist Malagos, even though I don't expect to see it kept off the mulligan.
Keep this whole hand and just take it. You couldn't, you'll die to giants, but yeah.
Yeah, this is the combo that has won him the game. Obviously, you can't keep it because you just die, but it has been so incredibly good of a 2-mana Malagos, double swipe, just win the game right there.
Yeah, and even more with this matchup as the twig is drawn yet again. Because your opponent's quite often on a low health total, especially if you can generate a bit of the tiniest bit of pressure with some bits and pieces. Sometimes you don't even need to sort of do full combo. You just Malagos, a couple of Moonfires, hit you with a 4/4, and you're dead. Sounds easy when you say it quick, which I do.
Lovely hand picked up here for Zoohex, keeping the Ooze as an answer to the Twig because he knows that's one of the major ways he is losing, but finds the Mountain Giant as well for his own threat. And now for Saiyan, even though he has Wild Growth into Twig, UI in hand, ready to go, he needs to get a Naturalizer, he's just going to die.
Yeah, he is in severe danger of actually losing on a Hearthstone stream. And it's massive danger. Zoohex here just needs to keep his wits about him, take his time and play good Hearthstone, and he is going to be in a prime position to take this down.
So Zoohex thinking here before making the only play available to him of tap into Giant. This is just the accepted route. Coin Drake could actually come down, I suppose, to play around the Naturalize that he suspects might be here from Saiyan. But if the Naturalize is not there, it's so good for Zoohex. He just wins. Well, he doesn't. But he's in such a good spot.
There's things that can slow it down. There's spreading plagues, etc. But basically, Saiyan's going to kill it over 2 or 3 turns.
Oof. So what are the plays available to him on this turn? It has to be Wild Growth, attack face, and then Hero Power probably.
Yeah, and he's having to attack face. He doesn't even want to do that really.
Yeah. Like I always think too much about the Hooked Reavers in this matchup, because for Saiyan here, it's not likely to be going to a long matchup for him here. He needs to get damage through to face and win with surprise lethal.
Yeah, especially when it's going this badly. We saw last game he started off attacking face and he stopped attacking face when he got the advantage and that sort of stuff. It could be over. Zoohex is right on the edge of getting this done because
he can kill the Giant
and
now.
Spellstone can get rid of the Giant,
but he has to tank the 8 in the meanwhile.
Jeez. So much follow-up available too.
Yeah, so much available to Zoohex here. He won't want to go for Twilight Drake Coin Ooze quite yet because that pushes Saiyan up to 10 mana rather than the 8.
You don't want him to UI. You don't want that 5 armor, let alone the refill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that card ever to be played. It's just so good.
So how do you get the most amount of pressure on board here? Like Twilight Drake. Actually, you want to be careful of Plague. So coining out a 2-drop probably isn't worth it. Just Twilight Drake.
This looks fine. You've got Spellbreaker for a Plague thing if you want to. You don't even need to. But for Lich King, you've got just Spellbreaker.
So close to game here. Look at Saiyan. We are actually even seeing the coin 2-drop here for Zoohex just to get more pressure on board, saying, I don't even believe that you have the Plague in hand. But
he didn't, but gets here now
off the top.
But can he do anything? I mean, he can do some stuff.
Oh, this also means from Zoohex, the Twig can't even attack. Because if he attacks into a Drake, that's just too much.
But that's what Sayen's working in now. Is like, is it too much? It's a lot. But can I win if I don't?
So if he goes, like, Mossy Horror loses him the game pretty much anyway, I think. So if he goes Plague and doesn't attack, he takes 10 damage. There's no lethal.
He has to attack.
But he just has to, right? This is the only play. You have to set up for it next turn.
You don't like it. It's horrible, but if you don't do it, you never win the game. This gives you can see for yourselves, there's some outs here with UI mess. And
Sayen knows that the ooze is there, though. It's been in the hand right from the start. Hellfire, I don't think quite gives lethal here as close as it is.
Yeah, I keep forgetting he's only got 6 mana. All the plays look great, and you go, oh yeah, he's not the druid. And Zuhex is close.
He's so close. How does he maximize his chances this turn? You have to play ooze, right? Even though you send them up to 10 mana, so what? They're going to play UI anyway. Unless they can't attack with the weapon because they'll take so much damage, but I don't think that's a possibility you can make.
4?
Even then, he can just play armor cards, and then play the UI. You just play ooze this turn. So then, how does he fill out the rest of his mana? How does he maximize his damage? Spellbreaker here, there's not much else that you want to hit, but I don't think that even allows you to get damage through to face.
So yeah, he goes with the ooze, and he's working out the rest as he goes.
Yeah, Sayen is looking resigned here as he sees it come down.
He looked like this against Fino in Montreal.
He can't top deck Deathstalker Rexar to save him now, though.
Yeah, he's looking doomed here. And devastated, because this was a chance to make Hearthstone... I mean, he's made Hearthstone history, win or lose. But this was a chance to really cement that Hearthstone history that anybody who watched Hearthstone would never forget. I don't think they would forget it anyway.
Speaking of Hearthstone history, though, the David that slayed Just Sayen's Goliath here, Zuhex is looking like he might have finally won a series against Just Sayen. The impossible task has been achieved if he can find this one final bit of damage to close out the game. And I don't think Just Sayen can stop lethal. I think that's just it.
He's looking for anything. I think at this point you try working out, okay, my opponent's nervous. What mistake can I make him make? Alex Straza enough?
And now for Zuhex, he can go attack in Hellfire. His opponent's at 14 health, down to 11. That's still 3 off. Spellbreaker, attack in. He doesn't have lethal quite yet.
Pretty ridiculous if he hasn't, because then Alex Straza's own face saying can hang in there.
So he just has to develop board on this turn, as much as he can. Like Gen Greymane on this turn, just to get damage in there. 11 damage. It's 3 off lethal, I think, no matter what you do.
So many possibilities.
He can set up for demanding his opponent to gain armor or heal, lest Hellfire kill him, which I think is what we're seeing here.
Yeah. And he's just attacking on multiple fronts. So he's actually keeping it narrow because he doesn't want the spreading plague to be an accident.
Yep. Sayen is just holding on by the skin of his teeth, though. This is not over yet, just
the
about.
naturalized pickup has given him a wealth of options. Like Lich King double naturalize, for instance, is one of them. He wants to Alex his own face, but he knows that lethal wasn't there last turn, so why should it be there next turn? He seems both Spellbreakers. Lich King might even hang around.
Yeah.
And
he's going.
He's found a way to not lose it just yet. And Zuhex is like, don't make me beat you 3 times in one game.
I thought that was over.
I thought it was over. I was just counting it down. I was counting numbers. I thought Zuhex had done it. This is the exact look and face that Fino had back in Montreal. It's like, he couldn't quite finish it, but can Zuhex?
The second Spellbreaker being burned as well there for Zuhex means, I mean, there wasn't lethal anyway.
Anti-Magic Shell's picked up, and he's got Plague in hand.
That's pretty sick.
That's absolutely insane.
You can even just go Floop Lich King and Anti-Magic Shell next turn. What response here is there, though, available for Zuhex? We can see just a Lich King of his own. Both naturalizers have now been used.
Yeah. But that just gets traded into, I mean, sure, I say just, that's a bit flippant, you know, it gets rid of your opponent's Lich King, but a minute ago you were putting on pressure for lethal to win the tournament, and now you're looking at slightly obscure plays to even resist the pressure that's coming back at you.
And this is a spot that Sayen was in the exact same situation at DreamHack against Fino. He thought he'd lost.
This time he doesn't have Rexar, a wise man once said, but he did have double naturalize and Lich King.
And it's not over.
No, it's not over. And it wasn't over in that DreamHack game either. He just kept hanging in there and making people beat him.
So now this is the even harder turn. Lich King double naturalize was a good way to pull him ahead whilst also developing a big threat. But what feels actually good on this turn? Can he set up for a lethal with Alexstrasza? He just doesn't have any of his combo pieces.
Lich King and you haven't got a 2-drop.
Spreading Plague doesn't do very much.
You really want to get a good anti-magic shell, but it doesn't look like it's really available. So you try to set one of those up for next turn. Yeah. Just go for what you've got.
This is a board that's difficult for Zoohex to interact with. Another Lich King card could save him here. Maybe if he could get a Mortal Coil to go with Malygos or to heal himself back up.
And it's almost going without saying as an unseen thing that Saiyin's doing. But he's weaving in hero powers all over the place to try and buff this Spellstone.
That's true.
He's saving 2 mana here and there. So this Spellstone going from 2 to 4 is going to be a big deal at some point. You can see a lot of the even lock minions will suffer for that. And yeah, you were just about to talk about this Frostmourne, I think.
Yeah, that being picked up does mean that there's a lot of damage that can go towards Zoohex's face, but Saiyan is clearly very hesitant to push any damage through to face. He missed an attack to face a couple turns ago in order to bring his opponent down to a point where Hooked Reavers would be playable, because he knows both Naturalize is gone. As soon as a 7/7 hits the board, his situation goes from bad to terrible.
And I think his play here is win on board, then Alex own face, and then I've won the game.
Yeah.
Just not die for a couple of turns. I don't want to have to Alex own face yet. There's no hurry. And just try and win this board battle. And slowly but surely he's starting to. Which is ridiculous.
Is he though? Like, what can Zoohex do on this turn? There has to be plays. Even just
well, this time his Lich King is better than it was last turn as well. Yeah, double Hellfire is interesting.
Your opponent just heals up then probably. You don't have the Gul'dan hero power to close it out. He's got to do something, though. Whatever play he's going to make, it has to happen right now. Lich King is decided to go down. It does give him a big threat. There's no lethal possibilities for Saiyan just yet. And that is more damage to face. That is lethal next turn with double Hellfire and Death and Decay, unless Saiyan heals up right now.
It does cost 11 mana,
though. It does cost 11 mana.
It does cost 11 mana. Saiyan, Arcane Tyrants are going insane.
Close enough. But he gets the armor anyway. The damage would have been there with Lich King.
Yeah. And there's so much going on here now. Saiyan's stabilizing slowly but surely here. He's up to... This 9 doesn't matter anymore anyway. And now he's got the board in a big way. He's got a great hand. And Zoohex is looking like Fino looked in Montreal.
So now he can go for a non-11 mana play, double Hellfire.
Yeah.
To try and get that damage through here. Or even Hellfire Defile now would be enough to clear off this board. He could then develop a Hooked Reaver at the same time. Yeah, this is probably the best way to get that damage through onto board.
This doesn't feel like a normal Hearthstone game in any way or form.
I don't know what's happening anymore here. I thought Saiyan had lost, but somehow he's pulling it back. And no Gul'dan for Zoohex. I mean, as soon as the damage starts coming through for Saiyan, it's going to stick.
Yeah, and now he's got a double Moonfire. So anytime he gets Malygos into the action, the game will end very soon after.
If he pushes face here with a Frostmourne here, that could have been lethal next turn, although he's expecting the removal. This does set up, unless there is a trade-in from Zoohex here and some other form of removal, just lethal with Malygos next turn.
If he played Frostmourne, it would have died.
He would have died?
No, it would have died, because the ooze was top deck, right, and he wouldn't have killed any minions with it. And
I thought it said something else.
No, I think he wants to Frostmourne a minion, so that if it gets blown up by an ooze, he gets something off the Frostmourne.
I think he probably wants to just push towards lethal as quick as possible.
Smack him in the face. Yeah, that also works.
Like, if he was at any higher health total, Alexstrasza would have been pointed towards his opponent, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I want to see some of these finals and some of these same matches opponents just on sort of time lapse of how they sit and how they posture in all these matches, because they go through the ringer. Even when they beat him, which is pretty rare, they just go through so much. But here is something you've been talking about for a while here, this double Hooked Reaver stabilization the other way.
This is what Saiyan's been afraid of. Malygos off the top can't kill off the Hooked Reavers, because they would only be taking 6 damage rather than 7. Even Death Coil is 1 mana short. I know about 11 mana now with Malygos to go for double Moonfire, Death Coil for lethal.
The instinct for saying it's a ferocious howl, but it's not enough unless you're looking for a specific card.
Yeah.
It does get you closer, of course, to the Malygos if you think you can spare the time.
He just has to trade. If he detects that there's no healing, we could just see the out of swipe face to set up for Malygos double Moonfire next turn. He's getting so close to lethal, like even just Death Coil, swipe face, double Moonfire is 11 damage.
Oh my goodness.
He's just trying to stay alive on this turn.
Yeah, he will win if he doesn't die, said everybody ever. But yeah, if he can just hang in there, there's not many cards to go now. Another big pickup for the Giant, not just because it's an 8/8, but with the Sun Fury that he's kept in his hand for the longest time.
Yeah.
That is more ways of protecting his face from this onslaught, but the onslaught's coming back the other way. Yet again, it looks like Zuhex might be getting this going, but Saiyan, who was on 9 a minute ago, is suddenly on 25, but the minions facing him are so huge. I feel like you have to defile here. You can't let an 8/1 trade into your 7/7.
So Zuhex here needs to thread the very fine needle of removing your opponent's threats lest he just die, whilst also trying to set up what is as close to lethal as possible.
This Death and Decay and Giant are pretty good here.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
The Defile doing the 2 points damage to the tokens and looking like potentially the end for Saiyan, but we've said that several times recently.
So now swipe Death Coil to face plus double Moonfire is 11 damage. That's not lethal. Even Malygos off the top would have been one off, perfectly calculated by Zuhex, I'm sure.
Yeah, he has been really good at that stuff. Yeah, I agree.
And what can Saiyan do here to survive without sacrificing his own win condition? Like, if he wants to, I believe there's a full board clear here available in some way,
yes,
surely.
But then he, as you're saying, he probably doesn't win the game. There must be ways to clear this lot up.
He goes Starfall on everything.
And this is where you start thinking, how do I win with a 4/12?
Yeah,
it must be there.
He's just clearing off what he can. He can't even fit in the swipe and the hero power face though, so he has to go. Oh, Death Coil on the 6/4, pray there's no damage, and push the one face for a Malygos off the top lethal.
Oh, so you
swipe
it. Yeah, swipe it does the same thing.
Yeah.
Is a little bit more comfortable, but
you get the armor here.
Yeah,
it means you're not dead to Dread Infernal, I suppose. He just prays that there's no damage here, but Zuhex, with the Hellfire off the top, has finally done it. Just Saiyan is defeated, and Zuhex is the HCT Oslo champion.
I'm glad we got to show Zuhex a few times on stream along the way, so we can see how much he has deserved this. And Saiyan Street comes to that end. Zuhex looks like he doesn't know where he is right now. The crowd absolutely goes, they've been cheering him all the way, in fairness. He's got a lot of friends in that crowd, and we're going to find out soon, like, how it feels to be the person, not only who won a tour stop, which is a massive deal in its own right, not only have you not been to many, and then you beat the man of the moment.
This has just got to be feeling amazing for Zuhex. There's very few people that can say, well, I was going to say won a tour stop, but beaten Just Saiyan recently. And as you can hear, a resounding vamos coming out from the rest of his Spanish compatriots there. It was such a really good performance there from Zuhex. I think that final game, I would have just been in nerve alone rather than play. It would have been so nerve-wracking to feel like Just Saiyan is going to be pulling things back against you. But finally there, Zuhex does an amazing job of pulling things back with some pretty gorgeous play. And we do now have our victor on the couch with us.
Hi.
Hey, I mean, the most obvious question ever. How are you feeling right now?
I don't know. I think I am dreaming or something. I mean, like, my run in this tournament looks like anime, because I only lost to Saiyan and I meet him in the final. I can't believe I beat him.
So now you're the Super Saiyan then, by that metaphor.
Maybe, I don't know.
Did you feel in that game 4 at the end there that you might still lose when he came back at you, or did you feel you always were going to win in game 4?
After he plays double naturalize and leeching, I think I lose. But after that, he hasn't Marigold in hand, maybe. And
no, he was waiting. He had double Moonfire.
Yeah, because that I come back after that, because he didn't draw Marigold.
So now that we've seen Hunter Ace's big win streak, and then Just Say and beat him and stole the power. Is it your turn now? Is this the start of your massive win streak in Hearthstone?
I don't think so, but it would be amazing if this happened. But I need to be better.
You need to be better?
Yeah.
You played well this tournament. Do you feel more comfortable on the stage now? I know on the first day you were quite nervous about going up there.
Yeah, when I played in a stage against Saya in the round 4, maybe, yeah, I was super nervous. But after that, I mean, nothing can go more bad. I lost there, so I can lose in the finals, but it will be better to lose before.
So how do you feel, having played through this whole tournament, about your lineup? There was a lot of aggressive decks doing very well. Would you like to have switched, or do you think you brought the right decks to the tournament?
I think I brought the right decks because I really like the Tobacco build. Yeah. That deck works super good for me. And I think I expected to a lot of people bring aggro decks. I think there is a lot of aggro decks in the field. No, there is not too much people playing anti-control decks. So I got lucky. I didn't face any of them. So I just...
Yeah, so good to see it, man. We're going to let you get off and celebrate with your many, many fans out there cheering
my
you on.
My Spanish friends.
And congratulations once again.
Thanks.
Hope to see you at many more tour stops.
Yeah, well done, mate.
So, delighted young man there, taking down HCT Oslo, and not just ending the streak, but winning a tour stop. Again, not that many people can say they've done that, and we're starting in the territory where people are starting to win 2 of them.
Yes.
And getting his name in the picture, and hopefully we'll see him around many more events. And not just be a ladder grinder anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for ZooHex. Like, obviously, he's already on a team, but just the recognition that it gets you, more fans, more practice partners, opportunities. I expect to see good things from him going forward with the extra points and money that he's got here as well.
Yeah, good for him. Well, that brings us to the end of another tour stop, but the show doesn't stop for long. Next week, we'll be in sunny Singapore, a little bit warmer than in Norway, and we'll be seeing who can take that one down. Hunter Ace will be back. So thank you so much for being with us, from Derek and from Delda and from all of production. After the last 3 days, we've enjoyed it. We hope you have too, and we'll see you next week.